Welcome to the work session for the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6. Ms. Lemon, would you please call the roll? Nope, this meeting will be called to order first. Now will you please call the roll?
Director Azari.
Present.
Director Bentley.
Present.
Director Campos-Tucci. Present. Director Nash.
Present.
Director Matthews.
Present.
Director Rowland.
Present.
Director Solomon. Present. All board members present.
Thank you very much. I just want to get right to it, I guess. The first item on our agenda is our calendar review. Just a couple of things remaining before we get to celebrate with our graduates. This Tuesday, room dedication for John Hayfley at the Pooter Learning Center. The retirement celebration, please make every effort to attend that one where we can celebrate our longtime educators. And then our last school visit to Jackson Elementary School. I think those are the ones I would highlight. Ms. Lemon, have you received everyone's RSVPs for which graduations they're attending?
I will double check in the email after.
Okay, so if you haven't done so, please let Ms. Lemon know which graduations you are attending. Anything that we missed? Any discussion on the calendar? Okay, we will move on to our board member comments. Ms. Sullivan, do you want to start this time?
Short and sweet. I've been to 4 different soccer games. Just Greeley West is kind of standing out right now, and then I've seen quite a few of the Frontier games as well.
Yes. Dr. Campos-Fitzy?
Yeah, so had a really wonderful time celebrating former President Michael Matthews' 6.5 years of service to the district at his appreciation celebration this last week. It was really cool to be able to honor you that way, Michael. Things from the district. One thing I wanted to highlight, my kindergartner came home last week with a little baby tree. And from the intercom, I learned from our intercom newsletter that the City of Greeley Government Forestry Department presented the giving tree to every D6 kindergartner. That's like over 1,000 trees. So the kids were taught how to take care of trees. They deputized the students as official tree caretakers, and every student went home with their very own Black Hills spruce, which I didn't know what kind of tree it was until I read the intercom. So we had fun planting that tree as a family. Looking forward to graduations, to museum night for the Fred Chartis School of Innovation coming up, and the Pooter Learning Center dedication tomorrow. And because I am the ambassador for Greeley West High School, I wanted to give a shout out to their students, their future business leaders of America that have presented many times to the board. Their students, they had 2 outstanding students, so they had their state competition this last week, and Putu was in the top 10 finalists for public speaking, and Raimundo, who goes by Ray, ranked 4th place in human resources management, and he qualified for the national conference in Anaheim, California this summer. Really cool. I happened to run into him at a Colorado Rapids game this Saturday, so I got to congratulate him in person and talk to his family a little bit. Let's see, other quick shout outs to 2 amazing school counselors. So Stephanie Mora, who works at NK Hyman, reached out to me in the last month asking if I would meet with a 5th grader at NK Hyman who was interested in becoming a doctor. And so I got to have lunch with her this last week. And then Amber Branicki, who's the school counselor at Meeker Elementary. Every Friday, they do Future Friday video interviews. So they have a couple of 4th grade students that interview parents in the school to talk about what our careers are like. So I got to sit down with a couple of outstanding mountain lions for that interview. So it's been a fun couple weeks in the district.
Mr. Norwood?
Well, I got off the IR and got an opportunity to go out to the Marine Corps Awards, which every year Major Kinsley and Gunny Morrison put on a great performance. Some of the highlights that I did get, and I don't want to steal any thunder from Mr. Azari, but so far this year, they have done 75 color guard presentations. The cadets are close to $1 million in scholarships. Through the school year, they've done 2,000 volunteer hours, including 700 volunteer hours during the holidays. Director Azari,
Yeah.
do you want me to save
Yeah, go ahead.
Timothy
Feel free.
Longacre for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
Um,
I mean, you go ahead and recognize Timothy.
Also, one of
Absolutely.
our student council reps, Timothy Longacre, got the most prestigious scholarship, which will pay him $180,000. So,
It's amazing. Thank you, Mr. Norwood. Mr. Azari?
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I mean, very impressive event, Marine Corps Awards Night. And I'd like to recognize Cynthia Kinsley, Major Kinsley's wife, who does such an outstanding job. I had no idea that she organizes the annual Toys for Tots campaign. And I'm not sure about specific numbers, Mr. Norwood, but I know that they collect and distribute thousands of toys, it seems, and books to kids throughout our community during the holiday season. That was very impressive, and she recognized all the cadets that participated in that and other folks in the community who volunteer their time. So again, a fantastic event. I also had the opportunity to attend the elementary art show downstairs in the lobby, and it was great. Again, hundreds and hundreds of people seemed to pour out for that. Lots of kids, many staff members, and I actually got caught up in some of the art. There are some pieces down there that I encourage you to take a look at. Actually, all of them, but some of them are like these three-dimensional pictures on a two-dimensional space, and these things just pop out of the texture of the paper, and it just surprises me. Those are done by some of our youngest students in the community. Very impressive. I also had the opportunity to go to the Hadestown production, as several of the other board members had encouraged me to do so, as well as the superintendent, and I agree, it was a wonderful production. Actually, I can't overemphasize this enough. It was a professional level show in a professional level theater. No problems with sound that I could detect, no problems with lighting. That is extremely difficult to do, to put something on like that. So bravo to everyone involved in that production. Coming up soon, I believe it's on May 1st, is the Greeley Central High School Gala. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And finally, I attended for the very first time in my career that I can remember the Special Olympics event at Northridge High School. Athletic fields out there, the District 6 Stadium. And it was really great to see all our young athletes out there parading along the track, but more importantly, hundreds and hundreds of their fellow students in the stands cheering our athletes on. Schools cheering on not just their own school athletes, but athletes from other schools at that event. It was just a really cool thing. And I want to say that I put on a lot of big events in my time, and that was a big event. So anybody who was associated with that, the organizing of that and the facilitation of it, very impressive work. I just really am thankful that we're in a district that does those types of things. And again, I was happy to see all the supporters in our community come out to acknowledge Michael's work and service on the board. So that's all I have. President Match.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Matthews?
Well, I don't have a lot to add. I'll just say thank you for everyone in the district for that ceremony. Thank you guys for your kind words. That was very meaningful for me and for my family. And so just thank you. Thank you for being there and for supporting these last 6.5 years.
Vice President Bentley?
I've been traveling abroad, a couple near-death experiences, but I made it back just in time for Michael's reception. That was about all I got out of the last couple of weeks as far as constructive school board work. But it was really great to see the support that turned out, and looking forward to closing up the year and the graduation marathon coming right up.
One event that I attended was the Refugee Quarterly Community Consultation Meeting, which is when various entities that help support refugee resettlement give a report to the community. So Lutheran Family Services is our resettlement agency here in Greeley, and a woman from the state refugee program as well comes and just provides some numbers and some resettlement data. So they are one of the nonprofits that has been impacted by some cuts in federal funding, and as well, you may know that refugee resettlement is currently on a pause until such time as the president decides to resume it. So a lot of the conversation was just around how can we continue to support newcomers to our community, help them to integrate, what are some of the biggest needs, which sounds like transportation, receiving maybe driver's ed for folks, housing, and continued immigration legal advice. So that was great to there's always the Greeley Police Department, the library system, healthcare entities there. And then there was also a benefit concert for the Immigrant and Refugee Center just yesterday. And that was really beautiful. We had there were multiple UNC professors who performed, as well as a flute studio with many different children from around the world. And it was great to see the community support for those members of our community. Thank you all for your comments. At this time, we will receive our curriculum adoption information, grades 9 through 12 English language curriculum.
Thank you, President Nash. As you all are aware, the curriculum team has been working on a curriculum adoption for high school language arts, and they come forward tonight with their recommendation for you all. I don't know if you all had a chance to review it. Well, it was on display for review here in the district, but they'll give you an overview tonight about the curriculum. And this presentation in the work session will be a little more detailed than the one in the business meeting, and hopefully a little more conversation will give you a chance to ask the questions that you might have before you consider adoption during the business meeting. I'm pleased to introduce you. I think Mr. Asmus is going to start. Okay, Mr. Asmus, you start.
Nash, members of the board, and Dr. Pilch. We are here to just bring to you a little bit of information on our new high school curriculum, 9 through 12 English language arts curriculum, that you'll be voted on later tonight. Really what brought us here is that our current 9 through 12 English program called Springboard was sold. And so with that, we no longer have access to the platform, to the workbooks, and to the curriculum. And so that sent us into a full process to adopt a brand new curriculum for this year. Our charge, the charge was to select and adopt a rigorous curriculum that offered opportunities for all of our learners to be successful, whether that be a multilingual learner, a special education student, or just anyone. And so we wanted something high level, at grade level, but all students could access. Lisa McGee, our English language arts coordinator, led a group of 9 through 12th grade English teachers, as well as school administrators, multilingual teachers, gifted and talented teachers, special education teachers. They all came together to look at a few sets of curriculum, and then Dr. Negan-Andrews came in to help with the final consensus to get down to one. And so Lisa and Dagan will walk us through the process used to recommend the curriculum. We can go deeper and ask more questions now as we go through, and then we'll present another presentation at the board meeting, and then hopefully you can vote on that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Negan-Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Osmus. So just like Anthony alluded to, we really started this process by focusing in on ensuring alignment with our district goals and to make sure that we're meeting state standards as outlined in 2020 Colorado Academic Standards for reading, writing, and communicating. Also ensuring that we're promoting equity and access, so making sure that all students get to engage in high quality ELA instruction, and to support rigorous and personalized learning, making sure, as Anthony talked about, that all students have access to grade level content, and they also have a resource that helps support them to meet their needs, to provide them with what they need when they need it. Also, you get to see here just what a incredible group of educators representing all 5 of our high schools that were part of this committee, including teachers and administrators. And also, like we talked about, we also had specialists for special education, gifted and talented, as well as specialists for multilingual learners, to make sure that we had great representation and eyes with different expertise to help with the selection process. Before we bring to you the recommendation, we'll talk through the process. And so the first part, and most of you are familiar with this process, it'll look very familiar if you've heard us come before you in the past around a curriculum adoption. So we start with Ed Reports, which is a third-party, well-respected reviewer of high-quality instructional materials. And that helps us narrow our focus to only the highest quality that meets their expectations. Then, as you saw, we selected committee members and then ordered samples from just narrowed down to 5 different resources. In November, the committee came together and created a philosophy statement with Lisa's support. And they also took feedback. A survey was sent across all of our ELA and co-teachers to get their feedback on what's critical for their needs to be able to best meet students' needs. And so that was incorporated into the philosophy statement as well. When the committee came together, they engaged in a data review where they looked at Ed Reports for each one of those 5s to see how they scored in each one of the different areas that they were evaluated through their process. They then jumped into the AIM rubric, which you are familiar with. That is our process, it's our rubric. And so they really looked into it line by line to make sure they had internalized it and make sure if there were any issues or things that need to be added, that they were able to do that to make sure that it really meets the needs of our students here in Greeley and our educators. They began the material review using the rubric, and then they also had samples. So they were able to take those samples of each of the curricula and then start piloting in classrooms with our students so they could see how students responded to the text and the different lesson plans that were inside of it as well. In January and February, they continued the material review with the AIM rubric, and then they continued to pilot those lessons inside of classrooms. Once that was done, they reviewed the AIM scores for all the resources and then narrowed it down to 3 finalists. With those 3 finalists, we then brought vendors in so they could go deeper into the resources, ask the vendors questions, and get some feedback if there's something missing or something like that that they weren't able to see in just our paper review and review of their online materials. The committee then really narrowed in on a few things that we talked about earlier around these must-haves that they had to have as part of a curricular resource to really meet our needs. Because the resources were so good, all of them were such high quality, we really had to focus in on the needs of our community and our students. And so these are the committee's list of absolute must-haves that they really were going to zero in on to make a final decision on this. And so I won't read them all to you, but you can see what they talked about. And then the next piece you can look at. So one of the 3 finalists was eliminated, which was StudySync. And that was eliminated because it lacked a lot of support, especially for new teachers. And so they really believed it wasn't something novice or young teachers could really benefit from, that it would take a lot of work, where these other 2 had much more substantial support for our educators. So that one was easily eliminated. And then if we go to the next one, our final 2 were into literature in my perspectives. And you can see how the committee ranked those out in terms of which one really met the mark as you look at how they scored each one of those on this. I will point out that into literature, the piece where it says easy to navigate for teachers, when they first saw it, it looked a little challenging, but in their conversations, they realized with professional development that there wouldn't be a challenge in really being able to navigate the platform. And so that's a critical piece too, is making sure that we have that intensive support for our teachers as they implement it. And so our committee is recommending to you this evening into literature as the final selection for this adoption. And to take a deeper dive into the resource, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa McGee, our K-12 coordinator for ELA and AVID.
Hello. All right, so once the committee made their final selection, then I was able to work with the HMH rep, and one of the desires that the committee had communicated to us was that they really wanted a strong implementation support. So the professional development that occurs at the beginning and mid-year. And so I have worked with the HMH representative, and we've come up with a 3-year plan. The first year includes 2 on-site implementation trainings where HMH coaches will actually come and facilitate the training with our teachers to help us unpack the new units and understand how to best use the resources. HMH is also providing 6 2-hour virtual training sessions, which if we decide that there's a need to use those, then we'll pull together a committee of teachers, either from a specific school that might be asking for the additional support, or if as a district we're seeing a need, we'll pull those teachers and work with the GEA representatives as well to make sure that we're leveraging the virtual trainings as best as possible. In person is always better, but virtual is better than nothing. So we have those in our back pocket as needed. Over the summer, we will have a 1-hour leadership virtual session with our principals so that they get a high-level overview of the system, the platform, and the resource itself so that they can support their teachers as they implement their first year with this resource. And then each building during the first year will receive a Coachly license, which is tied directly to the platform. And so as teachers are navigating the platform, if they're running into any issues or questions, each building will be able to directly chat or contact support that will get them their answers as quick as possible. During year 2, we wanted to make sure that we were really differentiating the support that we're providing teachers. And so during August, that Welcome Back Curriculum Day, we want to continue to offer the year 1 initial implementation support for our new to district or new to resource teachers, but we want to give the opportunity to our experienced teachers to really dig into the needs that they have after implementing the resource for 1 year. So we'll differentiate there so that we have offerings for our new and our experienced teachers. Year 3, we want to mimic that, but we want to start to leverage our teacher leaders. And so we have just 1 on-site implementation training, which will be that foundational training for our new teachers. And then we'll work with our teacher leaders so that they are actually stepping into the leadership role and facilitating the PD in different breakout sessions that they have identified that they need to support in. And once we're through the initial first 3 years of implementation, then that's where we will really leverage our teacher leaders. And so during the following Welcome Back days, we'll have our teachers facilitate the professional development sessions for our new teachers as well as experience. So I'm very proud of this package. I think that this speaks to the need that our committee has asked for, and I think it will ensure that we have just a quality implementation of the new resource. Okay. One of the pieces that our committee was really excited about, and this is tied to the platform, it's Writable. And the potential it has to give students timely and meaningful feedback, and then they can immediately turn around and apply it to their writing. So it tightens that feedback loop for our teachers, which we're hearing a lot. The more we ask our students to write, the more feedback our teachers need to give. And so Writable comes alongside our teachers, and the teachers can tailor what type of feedback the program is giving students, and then rather than going in and correcting everything, it just coaches the students so that they're able to identify it in their writing. So we're excited and believe that this will improve our student confidence as well as just our writing levels across all grade levels. The great thing about it is more than just an extension of like a Google Docs. It actually goes in and supports the entire writing process. So it starts with the planning, the drafting, the revising, and the feedback. And the teachers are able to see real time the progress within the writing cycle for each student. Plus, they're able to strategically group students in the platform so that students can share their work and give targeted feedback to each other that then they can go back into their writing. So we're really prioritizing the revision process in writing and making sure that we're honing in on those fine skills. The other core piece of Writable is that it is aligned directly with the content within the resource. So as students are reading the grade level text, they are able to get in and respond to writing questions or writing prompts within Writable. And so it might be that they're responding to a short story or they are writing a full essay within the platform. But every time they go into the platform, it will give them feedback and help them revise their writing and thinking. So we're really excited about that. The other thing is that it is available in both English and Spanish, which we hope will help us reach all of our students in our district. And then HMH really speaks to how using both Into Literature and Writable has helped other districts move their second language learners. And so this study comes from Houston County School District in Houston County, Georgia. And despite statewide declines, Houston County EL students using both HMH Into Literature and Writable showed significant growth and resilience in writing skills. Across Georgia, the percentage of English learners who reached a developing or higher writing level dropped from 23.6% in 2021 to 12.8% in 2023, and this is on their Access, their WIDA assessment. In contrast, students in Houston County using both Writable and Into Literature saw significant growth. So 20% were at or above developing level in 2021 and jumped to 34% in 2022. Also, the average achievement level of EL students in the school district remained higher than the state average at 18% in 2023. So we believe that this resource is not only going to help all of our students, specifically, we hope to see it support our multilingual students as well. During the evaluation process, there was a ton of opportunity to gather feedback from our educators. And so highlighted on this slide is just some of that, the feedback from our committee, highlighting the strengths of the resource. So I'll give you just a minute to look that over. Thank you. When compared to previous curriculum resources, the strengths of Into Literature offer a promising glimpse into how this resource will better support our students, empower our teachers, and overall just increase instructional practices in our school district. So this ties back to some of those priorities that the committee used when they were selecting the resource. So ease of use, as we have talked to other school districts and schools and our teachers who have piloted lessons in the platform in their classroom, teachers are saying that it's easy to navigate the resource and easy to make connections between both the printed materials and the digital platform. We also were really impressed by the ability to differentiate and scaffold within both the printed and digital platform. It will pull our students' reading levels, and then teachers can go in and actually tag what support students might need. So as they're pushing out different activities or questions, the program itself will modify so that it's accessible to all students. And then teachers have the opportunity to go in at any time and either increase or decrease those scaffolding levels so that we're constantly evaluating what are students able to do to meet grade level standards.
Lisa, will you explain what scaffolding means, please?
Yes. So we start our instruction at grade level all the time. And so that's the text and the prompts and the thinking that we're putting in front of our students. As our students are working through maybe learning a language or working through some other skill deficits, then the scaffolds are going to be what we put in front of students that will allow them to access the content so that they can still go through the thinking process and they're able to produce their thinking so that the teacher can evaluate. So they're the supports that students are receiving.
Just want to throw out there, one bullet that was on one of the previous slides is HMH. So the publisher HMH just bought NWEA, which is our nationally normed common assessment that we have our students do 3 times a year. And so there's a direct connection then between the skills, especially the bands, the skills bands inside of NWEA and the curriculum that we have here. So we should be able to look at what the students are able to do on our NWEA common assessment and apply those skills to this curriculum. So it's a great connection.
Yeah, when they shared that during the vendor presentation, all of our committee, they were just like, oh my gosh. It would be nice to have NWA really support the work that our educators and students are doing in the classroom. So that's a huge benefit of choosing to go with Into Literature. We still have the opportunity for consumables, and then our committee was really impressed with the diversity of the different types of text being offered within the curriculum, as well as the variety in authors. So, the total cost for this adoption, covering high school students in English classes 9 through 12 for a 7-year period, amounts to $1,082,354.47. This package includes all teacher materials, not only for our English teachers, but for our co-teachers as well. That was a desire from all of our buildings, was to make sure that our co-teachers had access to the materials, and so that is built in. We have student consumables for 7 years included, as well as the digital licenses for both teachers and students. I am very excited that we have included the ability to go one-to-one student to novels, so every student will have a copy of the novel that they are able to carry with them and access at any point. So that is a huge celebration for me. And then the Coachly license is also included for that first year as our teachers learn to navigate the platform. We'll keep one license for every building so that they have access to that on-demand support. And then this also includes the professional learning package with the HMH coaching and virtual professional development offerings as well.
So I'll leave this up here in case you have any questions. But the group, as a former English teacher, 8th grade English teacher, and I know that Dr. Pilch was as well, to get all of those people in one room and be able to come up with one curriculum is just amazing. So kudos to both of you for getting all of those people down to just one curriculum.
What questions do you all have?
So we're going to implement this starting next year.
Yeah.
And so the first year, what we've seen on how this is going to roll out, we're going to have these sessions with our educators through that first year, and then we continue with that professional development through the second and third year.
Yeah. So you'll see heavy on coaching from HMH the first year, but then you'll see more of a transition into our teacher leaders that will lead those in future years, which goes right along with what we're hearing from teachers is that they want to be the experts during PD anyway. And so after that first year, you'll see more and more of our teachers that will lead the work.
Excellent, thanks.
So one slide said the pilot period continued from January to February. Did it start in August? Like, I was just trying to figure out how long the pilot period was.
No, yeah, so our committee started meeting in November. We spent a lot of time on the foundational documents like the philosophy statement and really internalizing the AIM rubric. So we didn't start actually piloting resources until that January time period.
Okay. I wanted to express appreciation for that. So I was trying to figure out, I wanted to know something about the two curriculums without going through everything the committee went through. So I used ChatGPT. And I went on the Reddit education community, and somebody on Reddit had actually posed the exact question of my perspectives versus into literature. So it was fun to read the 34 comments. And one of the comments of those 34 comments was, our district spent 2 years piloting these two different curriculums. Biggest waste of my life. And so I just thought that was a little comical. But I think, some piloting is obviously definitely appropriate. It sounds like for that district, it sounded like they went overboard on the pilot. I had a question about the differentiation, but I think you answered it in another slide. It means you can do like accelerated learners and English learners, like where people are landing there.
And so this curriculum really celebrated the opportunity for the extensions as well, and that was something that we haven't always seen in previous curricular resources. And so it was really great to see how we could level up the writing opportunity or the reading or the level of questioning within a specific activity, and we could also provide those scaffolds to support students who need it.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. And yeah, for my very peripheral research, I liked HMH better too, so I'm glad we aligned there. And the last question, the student consumables, that's like workbooks and stuff, but okay.
So every year they'll have access to that.
Cool. And with the on-site implementation trainings, I'm imagining it's like a team of trainers they send over.
Yep, so they'll send their HMH coaches and they'll come out and it will likely be on that August curriculum day for our teachers. So yes, they will be there to facilitate.
Cool.
Yeah.
My apologies, I'm going to go backwards on this one. Can you clarify the old curriculum? What you mean by it was sold, because hadn't we prepaid for a certain number of years, so did we actually lose that money then?
It was actually at the end of its contract.
Okay.
And so our plan would be to use it and probably just purchase, and we do this sometimes in other curriculum, we just purchase the rights to use the platform. But this, it sold it, and it just changed so much that we just did not feel comfortable with using that anymore. We did not have the right access to that. The workbooks, the best option was just to go with the new one.
This was the first curriculum we adopted after we passed the first mill levy override. High school and middle school language arts curriculum was the first we adopted. So it was our oldest curriculum in the system.
So then what are we doing for 6th through 8th if this is only
You adopted that last year.
Oh my goodness, okay, I'm trying to remember.
We're in our first year of implementation of EL
Okay.
education.
And so it's the same curriculum provider that we purchased for elementary literacy, is the same provider at middle level that we have.
So K-8 will be EL, and then now we have HMH for high school.
And EL did not have an option yet for 9-12.
Okay, thank you.
So site license is 7 years? Quick question, as seniors graduate and you get ninth graders coming up, does this include the new workbooks?
Yes,
For the-
every year, yes, the consumables will be replenished.
Okay, good.
For every student every year.
The piece that won't be replenished will be the novels, and so schools, when they receive the novels, they'll actually catalog them in the library, and then we'll check them out through the library, so it'll function just like any other library book, but we won't replenish the novels year to year. This will be a one-time purchase for the novels.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
always appreciate seeing the entire process, and I think that the cost for 7 years looked fairly similar to what I remember some of our other curricula costing, so hopefully that's not jumping up a lot with inflation and things like that, but obviously enormously important piece of, we need to have good curriculum and have all of the updates and the digital content as well, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Our next item will be legislative updates with Mr. Fall.
We were talking today, it's been a very, very active legislative season, and it continues to be.
Thank you, President Mash and members of the board. My name is Nate Fall. I'm in-house legal counsel for the school district. We are talking about current legislation. Certainly, if you do have any questions or if there's something that I've missed, please let me know, and I will do my best to get that information to you as soon as I can. Just off the top, the legislature is going to adjourn on May 7th, so that's only a few weeks away, 2 weeks, I believe, from today. So not a whole lot of time, but they are pushing every single bill forward imaginable. So this really is kind of the biggest part of the year in terms of getting bills to get pushed forward or getting bills to die in committee, ideally. So I do have a spelling error under 1C, but we do need to prioritize political capital with an A on any remaining bills. That must have been a political capital spell checker with an O. So just know that really where we focus our energy right now is super important. And again, we only have a few weeks left. So if there is anything that we really want to focus on and have our lobbyists and Barkus focus on and prioritize for us, now is the time to do it. We'll get started just on financial, on our board priorities. Just so you know, the financial literacy bill did actually get some action since the last board meeting. It did pass the House today on its third reading, so it has moved to the Senate. With the newest amendments that have been adopted, I would say that this bill is now granting broad discretion to LEAs or local education authorizers or school districts to use curriculum they've already adopted insofar as that curriculum aligns with what the financial literacy law is in Colorado. So there's already a law about financial literacy curriculum in Colorado. It's just not required that students take it. And so if we already have classes that are in alignment with that law, we can use that law, or we can use those classes to be in compliance with the law. This will apply to all students starting September 1st, 2026. So this upcoming school year, we won't need to worry about, but we will need to have something ready the following year. There were some amendments that were also adopted, creating some grant programs, particularly for some of the smaller school districts to implement financial literacy courses. I'm not sure if we would necessarily qualify, but of course, if there's grant money available and we think we might qualify, we would certainly throw our hat in the hopper and see what we can do. So that's where we're at with the financial literacy bill. It's probably going to pass and it probably will be a requirement. I don't anticipate that. Well, we'll just see on how much change will need to be made.
Does that impact CDE on not CDE, but the standards at all?
They did not change the standards.
No, so.
Standards are the same.
Yeah,
Okay.
and in the version, I did share an electronic version, and so you can see, I linked in the most recent version of the bill. And Mr. Rosari, and so to answer your question, I think the state will develop, the State Board of Education will develop its own standards on financial literacy. But again, if there's already a course that we already have that is in alignment with the law, I'm guessing that the state board wouldn't stray from those statutory standards. So I'm guessing we would be in alignment if that's the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for that question. Anything else? Moving on to House Bill 251135, that's the phone ban bill, as I've been calling it, communication devices in schools. Governor Polis did sign that bill last week. It is law. We already have a policy that has restrictions on the use of cell phones during school hours. Our policy is more robust than what the state requires, so we're good to go. I generally, just as a matter of principle, don't like laws that tell us to do things that we're already doing, just so you know.
Which both of these laws do.
Unnecessary
Both of these
laws.
pieces of legislation do, the financial literacy and the cell phone ban.
People think because I'm a lawyer, I like laws. That's not the case, okay? So just so you all know, I'm not like in defense of all laws, but, okay. Anyways, I don't need to defend myself. And then from the federal administration, I did add 2 more executive orders that came in last week from President Trump. That was restoring equality of opportunity and meritocracy and reinstating common sense school discipline policies. Again, you can go in and those, that's the actual language from those executive orders, but just know that those 2 April 23rd orders are kind of saying the same thing around disparate impact. So whether or not we have a policy that may be neutral at its face, if it's disproportionately impacting one group, typically, at least by this administration, on the basis of race, that we would need to, that OCR is directed to no longer look at disparate impact, essentially is what this is kind of calling for. There's going to be additional guidance coming from the U.S. Department of Education and the Department of Justice. So we will, again, see. I was in a meeting last week with Attorney General Phil Weiser, and I'll just say it made me feel a little bit better because I've been having conversations with this board and essentially not providing you with a whole lot of information because we don't really know what's coming and what next steps are. And Attorney Phil Weiser, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but they're also kind of in the same camp. That we're just not totally sure exactly what to do yet. So I felt better just in my own abilities when I heard that. But just know that there's a lot coming, there's a lot we're reviewing and determining, but really we're not making any changes because at least we don't have any guidance that requires us to make any changes, if that makes sense. But again, I'll continue to update you. And just so you know, the state did not sign that certification letter. We got some additional information back from Susanna Cordova, who is our, we call her the Secretary of Education? Commissioner of Education, with additional information, essentially saying that she's going to sign or not sign the certification on behalf of all districts, and gave some kind of reasonings why, which we talked about at the last meeting. So we still haven't signed anything as a district yet. Commissioner Cordova did give us the opportunity to sign the certification letter or sign a different letter, and ultimately we just decided to not sign anything because at least I thought that was the best approach. Any questions on that? All right, so, and then the last kind of board priority that we had been discussing over the course of this legislative session was House Bill 251278. That is modifications to the accountability system. That also passed 3rd reading today in the House, and that is now moved on to the Senate. So just so you know, this bill has created a more kind of holistic approach to how schools are rated. It created kind of these post-secondary readiness indicators, these PWR indicators, that I would argue that District 6 really benefits from because we do have such a focus on career readiness, as well as all the certification programs that we have in our school district. And those will go to providing us with a better rating, essentially. I kind of also explained in my narrative here just kind of what this bill is also doing. It has been heavily amended but for the most part, the spirit of what the accountability committee recommended is now integrated in this bill. And I believe that this is something that we should be supporting at this point. There were some changes in terms of amendments. They're going to have this accountability dashboard that was going to be available to make it transparent for folks to be able to go onto the website and click through, and they're getting rid of that, and that's going to save about $500,000. So there was some kind of technical changes that they made to make up some of the revenue that this bill ultimately would cost if they were going to roll it forward. So I would say again that the spirit of the committee's recommendations are in alignment with this bill, and we stand to benefit based on all the great work that we do in this district for supporting students beyond just post-secondary readiness. There is a summary in here. Again, I do recommend that you look into that. For other proposed legislation, this is on page 3. We had talked at the last meeting, Senate Bill 25284. This is that youth services engagement on school campuses. It did pass the Senate second reading with amendments today, so it's on for its third reading. This bill was amended. Some of those amendments came, I believe, through CASB. Well, actually, I know for a fact CASB is still in opposition, but now it's not requiring these organizations to actually come on campus during instructional hours. What it's doing is it's requiring that school districts create a policy that would allow these organizations to communicate with students. And so how would these organizations communicate with these students? It doesn't have to occur during school days. In fact, the amendment specifies that communication cannot occur during instructional time. We already do this. Again, we already have a process for which outside organizations can communicate with their school communities. I don't see a point in having a law tell us what we're already doing. I also think it opens the door to unnecessary liability. I think if you heard the comments on this bill originally, one of the panelists just read through, 20 organizations and basically just said, by this law, you'd have to allow all these folks in. And, they use very, very polarizing groups, right, to kind of make a point. And I think that doesn't go away with this bill. So just know that I still recommend that we oppose this bill. Of course, I'm always open to this board. I don't believe we've actually taken a firm position on it yet.
Basically, it's letting them use our listserv, like even if it's not during instructional hours, like any organization can have access to like all our families' emails and just send out like promotional information for their organization?
Yeah, so we would have to, and we already have kind of a non-curricular distribution policy that's out there. And so we would be able to use these kind of time, place, and manner restrictions on, would they be able to get emails? Or would they just be able to post it on the school's website? Or would we only have handouts that we could give and leave it at the front office and they could come take handouts? Would we create an area where these organizations could have their materials out there? So we would have to kind of develop these time, place, and manner restrictions. And so, yeah, and I think my recommendation would not be to release emails so that they could kind of share that in that manner, right? But, would we then be restricting one organization over another? And so again, we're kind of creating liability in that regard. And so I just find this bill to be a little bit frustrating. I think it's made with the right intention. It's backed by the Scouts. I mean, that's really the group that wants this. And I think most school districts have a good relationship with the Scouts, but, it's not.
It doesn't say Scouts, right? Like, it's not like that is who is that it's limited to that organization. And like you said, that definition is pretty broad. I mean, my instinct is to oppose it because I can only see this becoming a problem.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And yeah, I left that definition of what youth service organizations are defined as, and it is a very broad statement. I was on the CASB's Legislative Resolution Committee call on Friday, and all the school district, members of that group all had similar concerns. And so they're sticking in a position of opposition as well, just because it just feels like it's going to be a burden for schools and school districts to manage these requests.
I don't know if anybody else feels strongly.
Does it look like this will pass? I'm sorry. And I mean, do you have a sense of where this is?
So I think my take is that there's an opportunity to kill the bill once it goes to the House. And it'll probably go to the House Education Committee first, and that'd be our best opportunity to get some changes in there or to try to make sure that the bill doesn't pass.
Besides Scouts, who were some of the other organizations?
Let me see here. I know that this is a big Scouts bill, but I probably shouldn't just call out Scouts because I know that I'm sure there's other organizations that.
Well, I think originally it was just the Scouts that were supporting it, but when you consider all the organizations that could have access, then it becomes much broader than the Scouts.
Yes. Colorado Alliance of YMCA's is in support. Colorado Children's Alliance, which I'm actually not sure what that organization is, they're in support. And Scouting Colorado. Yeah.
How does, what is the current status of like military recruiters or college recruiters communicating with students in our schools? How does that happen?
Military recruiters is a whole separate requirement, and that's a federal requirement where we do need to open our students up for recruitment to military. And so we have a very specific process and opt-in, opt-out for, I believe it's juniors, high school juniors, to get or receive that information. And so we have policy language specifically addressing military recruiters. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. And then how about for colleges and universities? Because would this sort of bill impact them in any way, shape, or form? Like private colleges or religious colleges, things along those lines?
That's a good question. I don't know specifically about all colleges. I know for the ones we have partnerships with, we're actually even developing opt-in, opt-outs for sharing information with Ames, for example. And so students can not opt out of us sharing with Ames, and then when they graduate, Ames will send them a letter of acceptance, and they're automatically accepted into Ames. But that's through this partnership that we have with sharing information, and so they can opt in or opt out of sharing that.
Through our school counseling office, though, college visits are scheduled and students are notified via systems within the school of when those recruiters will be there, and students can sign up to go meet with recruiters during the school day.
This bill, regardless of whether it passes or doesn't pass, won't have an impact on our current.
I don't
think
see
so.
it having an impact on that.
Okay.
No, and I mean, I guess if you read what a nonprofit organization is broadly, it can be considered a university. But I think it's really for those organizations like Scouts and Colorado Children's Alliance and YMCA.
So that's a good question, Doran, because now I'm curious. I'm on my 6th kid who is now a senior, and every year of the senior year, every single one of the kids just gets spammed with massive flyers and tons of stuff comes in the mail. And how are they getting on that list? Because they haven't contacted those 55, 60 colleges that we're getting information for that's specifically addressed to that student.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my guess is through the release of directory information that these orgs will reach out and say, give me a list of all the students who have not opted out, and then you just by law share with them. So I don't know. And it's same thing with when you Google something on your phone, all of a sudden you're getting an email about it like 2 days later. You know, I don't know how that information ultimately gets shared. You know, our goal with any vendor or anybody we're working with is always student privacy first. And so we always want to make sure that they're not going to be selling student information or releasing student information. So yeah, we do our best to kind of be gatekeepers for that.
Ed, would this change that, our ability to be gatekeepers, do you foresee?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, I think if we're opening the door for organizations to contact students, I think that it just makes it harder to control that, you know, just logically speaking. But
That would give anyone.
I can
the
only
right to
speculate.
contact, right? Anyone would have that right at that point with the passage of this bill.
If they can indicate that they promote civic education, leadership, career readiness, or similar opportunities, which It's pretty broad,
Yeah.
pretty easy to do that.
I would recommend that we oppose this. Okay, just as a parent of 5 kids, that I mean, the amount of information I get just from the school district, when you start saying, well, we're going to have these other organizations coming, and I'm going to get information from them as well. Just the ability to wade through everything is really difficult. And I think our own ability to communicate with our parents is hurt when we allow other people to use the school system to communicate with our parents.
Yep. Yeah, my takeaway, and I'm such a stickler for FERPA student information, and that's because families give us a lot of information and they trust us with that information, and so we have a duty to protect it, and not just a moral duty, but a legal duty to protect that information. And so the more we open the door to that, just the more concerned I get from kind of a legal liability perspective. So, any other questions or comments? Thank you for all that. The next one is House Bill 23-1300, Workers' Compensation Benefits Proof of Entitlement. We haven't discussed this bill. It has come out fairly recently. It'll be heard on the Senate floor tomorrow. This is really an employer-employee type bill. Certainly expands rights under the workers' compensation law. I think what's concerning about this bill is it allows for physician selection. And currently, the district and when working with our insurance, we carefully select providers, and that employees are kind of required by law to select one of those 4 providers. This bill would allow employees to select any level 1 or level 2 physician within a 70-mile radius, just any of them. And this really, just from a business perspective, could substantially increase costs, not only for things like mileage reimbursement, paid travel time. That is something we currently pay for, is I think it's called like windshield. I don't forget what the word is, but essentially from the minute you get in your car and drive to your physician's office to the minute you get back, we pay for all of that time for travel. So a 70-mile radius is a pretty large, I think that would take you all the way down to Highlands Ranch, which we know that travel just there and back could take some time. But I think also losing quality control over medical providers. We've had providers in the past that we've had to work with insurance to remove just because of their treatment of employees, right? And I think that by allowing kind of folks to choose any provider that they want to, this could create a kind of a cottage industry of providers who provide higher impairment ratings or recommend unnecessary treatments, and this could drive up costs. So again, this is just really from a financial business perspective. I will say that the vast majority of employer groups in the state are very opposed to this bill. Very, very, very much opposed. This is not a school district specific bill. This is just a statewide employer-employee bill. There is one element of this bill that we would support, and that's that right now, as it's written, once a physician is selected for you, you can't change, even if it's not really working out. And this bill would give you a one-time physician change if you would like that. We know that sometimes patient-doctor relationships don't work out, and so giving them that opportunity would be beneficial to those employees. But we just think that this bill, as it's written, is going to increase costs significantly. And then again, just through speculation, and we can just anticipate that it will lead to more claims, or claims that'll get dragged on for longer and things of that nature.
So Nate, where does this come from? Was there some sort of a problem somewhere in the state with employees getting access to appropriate medical care when they were injured on the job?
So what I understand, I don't know if this came from one specific place, but there were, in the panelists for this committee, there were they brought forth a number of injured employers who kind of gave their stories about how they were forced to be with one provider. It wasn't working out for them. They weren't getting the treatment that they needed, but they were still stuck with this one provider, right? Or that they were required to choose from these select physicians, but it wasn't their physician. And so they wanted to have their physician because they thought they would get better treatment from that individual. So I don't know if this is brought by one particular group, but it was, I think it's just brought more from the injured workers and the attorneys who work for them are kind of the folks who may be behind this. And I can see,
I'm curious if, like the healthcare industry, if their lobbyists have weighed in on it. Like my gut is this sounds terrible. As a medical provider, I would hate to do workers' comp personally. So I'm interested. I would assume most doctors who don't work in workers' comp would not want to do this.
so Advent Health is in opposition, every major school district. AFSCME is in support of it. I'm not sure what that is. It looks like an advocacy council or a union, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. So it's a labor union.
Of government employees.
Government employees, yep. So, yeah, I mean, Colorado Ready Mixed Concrete Association is in opposition. Colorado Telecommunications Association is in opposition. City of Colorado Springs, City of Fort Collins, City of Thornton, all the cities are in opposition. Colorado Ambulatory Surgery Center Association is in opposition. Who's in support here? Colorado Education Association is in support. Colorado Livestock Association is in opposition. Rural Schools Alliance is in
Doesn't sound like there's
opposition.
any healthcare group represented, which is really just interesting. I had not heard of this until this update.
It's been on our radar, but just kind of nothing was happening, and then all of a sudden, here we are with 2 weeks left.
You don't even
and
have
it's
2
been-
weeks. It's a week from
Well, if somebody
Wednesday.
chose me, for example, I actually don't have any openings for the next 3 months. So my medical assistant right now, if I have a follow-up for any patient, she has to send a message to herself for when my schedule will open up in a month to get them an appointment. I mean, it would drag the process on forever, because at least primary care doctors, there's a shortage of physicians, right? So our schedules are so full. I think workers' comp doctors, they have availability to see somebody in a more, a better timeline.
And
Anyway.
I would say it's our and our insurance's perspective that those physicians are best suited for workers' comp claims because it's procedural, like there's a process to follow and they are experts in that kind of area and they kind of understand what's needed. And so just for efficiency's sake, it's also really beneficial too, so, yeah.
I've been through the workers' comp claim 4 or 5 times, the process. There's no lack of options or there's not like a shortage of, there's not like a hole that they're not getting taken care of. They're actually on the opposite end. They're getting extra good care, extra good. And then you're right, there is a group of physicians and doctors and hospitals and places that are especially, already trained and in tune with how the process works. It sounds like just a soup sandwich in the making, you know what I mean? And employees have the tendency to just go to the highest costing place because they think that's automatically going to be the best, which doesn't technically you don't need to go to Cherry Hills to get a worker comp claim for a broken toe, right? Like it can be handled here. So it's, I'm always fighting to get my guys to not go to the emergency room for a sniffle, right? And that's hard. I can't imagine what something like this would open up Pandora's box.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, and I say we, meaning the school district and our insurer Pinnacle, strongly believe that the physicians that we have available are capable and do provide good care,
Pinnacles who have
quality
too,
care.
and like I said, I've never seen a lap where I'm like, oh, that's a loophole for me. No, it's the opposite. It's always in the employee's favor.
So I think that quality control is super important, just from a business perspective.
Sounds to me like we want to hold on opposed, Nate.
Okay.
No.
All right. The next bill, Senate Bill 25-276. This is that protect civil rights immigration status. We had talked about this bill at the last meeting. It has been amended, but I think, again, kind of the spirit remains where it creates kind of restrictions for what schools can ask or require in terms of information from families about place of birth, immigration status. and that we would be restricted from allowing federal immigration officials from entering our facilities without a valid judicial warrant. The only issue that I really still see is this civil penalty, which could go against an employee for up to $50,000 per violation. The law is pretty specific that it's for intentional violations. They did strike the language about removal of qualified immunity. So employees are assumed to be immune from suit now, which is good. But still, they could be subject to a fairly hefty penalty. Employers as well could also be subject to the same penalty of up to $50,000. Again, just for intentional violations. I think that this is a much more watered down version of the previous bill. I don't like having our employees potentially being on the hook for anything, but I think that there is still some added protection, especially with that qualified immunity provision looped back in there. So we were in a position of monitor amend at the last meeting, and I recommend we kind of stay there. All right, so House Bill 1023, this is the House Joint Resolution Bill requiring the General Assembly or authorizing the General Assembly's committee to retain legal counsel to file a lawsuit in district court. And so the intention of this is that they would sue, the state legislature would sue essentially, how to explain this? I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around this. So the state legislature would have standing to sue essentially the state of Colorado for a law that is unconstitutional, meaning that federal law, US law, requires kind of this representative democracy, right? Where we vote for representatives who then vote for things like taxes. Tabor gets rid of that. Tabor just brings that power to the voters directly. So we kind of lose that representative democracy. And so this lawsuit's essentially arguing that by removing those essential legislative powers, Tabor is unconstitutional. And so this resolution would need to go through both houses. It just needs a simple majority to pass. And then ultimately, this would give the Colorado General Assembly's Committee on Legal Services the right to obtain legal counsel to then bring a lawsuit. Are you all still following? Am I making sense? I'm so sorry.
Not your fault.
So, and you know, we know that Democrats currently hold a majority in both chambers. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to pass. I think that there are many factors at play, including just that folks in Colorado like Tabor. And so that doesn't mean that every Democrat is going to vote for this bill. I will also say that there was a fairly similar case already brought in 2011, Kerr versus Hickenlooper, that essentially argued pretty much the same thing. And that was rejected by the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. So I'm not confident that even if this bill were to go through, that it would be a successful legal challenge. I did highlight on the next page kind of the primary issues for what would make this a successful lawsuit. They would have to establish standing, meaning that the state legislature has standing to bring a lawsuit, that they are suffering from some legal harm and therefore can bring a lawsuit. They'd have to overcome this constitutional argument that was already decided by the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, that Tabor violates this guarantee clause, this representative democracy clause. It would have to overcome legal precedents. Again, that Kerr versus Hickenlooper case argued very much the same thing. So they'd have to be presenting some new arguments or presenting some new evidence that would make this different, to distinguish it. And then, of course, they'd have to garner enough public support for this. Again, this has come in front of the voters several times, and the voters of Colorado seem to support Tabor. And so, even if this were to go to a lawsuit, it's difficult to know what public perception might be about it. So that's a I feel pretty bad, crappy summary of what this is. I'd be happy to answer your questions or try to answer your questions about it. It has gone to the House reading of the whole, so it did make it through committee, and that was today, so I'm actually not sure what the outcome of that was.
Nate, is Tabor part of the state constitution?
It is.
I think most people don't understand Tabor.
I think my take is that's probably true. I think people don't understand what significance it has on our ability to fund public education
And other
and other.
public needs.
Yeah.
Okay, school finance.
School finance. So I didn't put very many notes down there. Just know that it is moving forward. This is something that we are supporting. It is now assigned to the House Education Committee, who will be hearing that on Wednesday. Dr. Pilch will be going down to testify. Again, I don't know if we have any other board directors who are volunteering or being voluntold to go down to testify in front of our Senate Education Committee. Of course, I'm always happy to go and testify, but they would way rather hear from you all than a lawyer. I mean, truly, they don't really want to hear from me all that much. There is a fiscal note. This is the third rendition, the most recent version of the fiscal notes attached, so you can go in there and read it. There are amendments that are still being introduced, and those will be heard by the Senate Education Committee. I think the biggest one that's being dealt with, at least was dealt with in the House, had to do with this at-risk supplemental funding and how that flows through to charters. And so that's being dealt with through amendments. And just know that we do benefit from that kind of separate at-risk appropriation. That'll stay in place next year. It'll be then reduced by 50% during the 26-27 fiscal year, and then it'll go away in its entirety during the 27-28 fiscal year. I don't know if you have anything to add on school finance.
No, lots of people are still working really hard. I think it's been a very busy legislative season, very busy.
Did the one about data requirements that were school-specific, did that die?
That was, I think I was just reading that amendment, I think it was like Amendment 11 or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know either.
Nate, you started out saying that we needed to prioritize
I'll find out.
political capital. Do you have a recommendation on which of these bills is most impactful to us? And how should we prioritize our political capital in time with lobbyists, or lobbyist time with legislators?
I think one area of political capital that we want to continue focusing on is the School Finance Act. I think of everything that's probably the most important place that we should be spending our attention. I mean, I think the Systems of Accountability bill is another good one that we would certainly put our weight behind to support that bill and those amendments that were made. I think personally, I do think that the workers' compensation bill is significant. But again, if that's something that we just want to continue to monitor, then the youth service organization bill is something that, we could take a stronger position on. And I'm just not sure if our testimony will add anything else than what's already been said in a lot of ways. Like the youth service organization, there's plenty of groups that are in opposition to that bill, kind of like the workers' compensation bill as well.
Right.
So I think to answer your question, school finance is probably our
Okay.
most important thing.
And accountability.
And accountability.
Yeah.
And there's, you said 2 weeks left in
About
the
a week-
session?
About a week and a half.
A
Next
week and a
Wednesday.
half.
Yeah,
So-
a week from Wednesday is the last day.
May 7th is, yeah.
Do you feel optimistic that the School Finance Act will make it through the Senate?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
We are optimistic.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fall. We have a lot of questions. There's a lot to unpack there. Well, as we do have a reception to get to, we'll go ahead and close with our debrief. Mr. Matthews, would you like to go first?
Nothing much, just thank you everyone for the work in bringing us new English curriculum. Hard to believe, we're our second round of stuff. Looks like they did a great job, and thank you, Mr. Fall, always for keeping us updated.
Ms. Chancellor?
Well, it's always great to know the system works, and in regards to the curriculum, it seems to be going well, and I appreciate the work on behalf of all the curriculum folks. Okay, I know how much time that takes. And Nate, for keeping us updated. And even though you are a lawyer, we know that you do like laws and you follow them. So that's really a positive thing. So thank you.
Mr. Nolan?
I do appreciate everything that Councilor Fall does. amazes me that his wealth of knowledge. And as far as the curriculum goes, it's kind of like athletes showing up to play football on the football field. The field's ready for them. There's a whole lot of work that goes into it to get there. So I appreciate all the work on the curriculum.
Yep. Likewise, just wanted to give you guys kudos for being so thorough on choosing the new curriculum for our 9th through 12th graders. Excited about seeing AI used in a positive way for our teachers, and the graphs on English language learners was really exciting too. So, and then Mr. Fall, always thank you for helping us understand what's going on at the Capitol with an O.
Not much more to add. Thank you for your thorough presentation. I can tell that there was a lot of effort and work put in by a lot of people. And Mr. Fall, you had me up until the Tabor, and then I'm lost at that point. So, wow.
I'll explain it to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you questions.
Mr. Bentley?
Yeah, same. Thank you guys for all your hard work. I'm in agreement with Nate. I hate laws for the sake of making laws. Also, I'm not a fan of government employee-supported laws most of the time, especially when the entire private sector is going to be funding it and against it. So it all seems like a red flag to me. It's not a all for one or nothing, but it's always something to pay attention to. So thank you for pointing that out and bringing it to our attention.
Thank you very much for all of your work on the curriculum as well as the legislative update. Mr. Fall, I was wondering if we can take it as like a pat on the back that we're already doing all the things that they want to put into law. We're like, yeah, we already thought of it. All right, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. Please join us back for our business meeting at 6:30.